So one thing I'll mention is if this kind of class is something you like and you're doing this professionally, I'm not sure if anybody in here takes SANS courses, but SANS does have a class dedicated to this topic. It's the 542, which is Web Application PenTesting and Ethical Hacking. And they also have a 642, which is the advanced version of this class. So you take this course, and as a prerequisite, and 642 is the second part. I know a couple people in here have had at least 642 because I was in class with them. So okay, yeah. So depending on, SANS classes are offered like wherever you want to take them, but you can also take them as more like a college semester over a 10-week period where you go to 1 2-hour class a week. You study all week just like you would in regular school, and then it's a 10-week semester. So the one coming up in Louisville in the fall, I'm going to teach that one here. So if you prefer not to travel and you're going to take SANS classes anyway, I'll throw it out there that I'm going to have 542 this fall, and it's probably going to be somewhere kind of in the middle of town, maybe around Hirschborn Lane or something like that, somewhere where everybody can get to it pretty easy. And I found, oddly enough, the easiest way to find it, because it's the only thing I do for SANS, I don't have any other classes, is if you search for my name, it actually came up easier than any other method. So it was the very third thing that came up. And this is my bio if you're interested in reading it sometime. So we don't have enough time to cover the last 3 topics or any of the additional off-the-board topics that we had. The last 3 topics were JavaScript injection, JSON injection, and the unvalidated redirects and forwards. It's OWASP 810 currently, until they switched to 2013. And then some of the off-the-board topics that we saved in the incredibly unusual event that we were actually ahead of schedule was going to be things like CBC bit flipping attacks, where you're actually bypassing. It's a third way to bypass authentication by attacking the system's encryption using the cipher block chaining bit flipping. So it would have fit under here in the broken authentication and session management. And then, of course, there's another 30 vulnerabilities that we haven't even mentioned today. Things like trying to get past captive portals by making your browser look like an iPad and stuff like that. So let's be democratic about it. Let me close this out and close this folder. Okay. Oops. And close this out. Does everybody have a preference between the last 3 topics or something off the board? So we got injection, unvalidated redirects as your choices here. Any strong opinions?
JSON is specific, so I've heard it.
JSON, okay. That's the hardest one. I vote for something else. I say, all right. No, that's a good topic. That's certainly a timely topic, very appropriate for today's day and age, isn't it? Okay. The site does have some bugs in it, so let me just make sure that the site is working okay. So I'm going to search for W3AF. And this page uses Ajax, so there's not going to be a refresh of the page when you look up the tool. It's just going to grab the results in the background, pull the results in, parse them, and alter the document object model in real time. Probably pretty familiar. Most all of the mobile applications behave this way. The whole entire page doesn't reload or anything. You just change one little part of the page in real time using these Ajax requests. And the data transmitted back and forth is often JSON. In fact, it's often JSON in both directions. The request goes out as a JSON message and the response comes back as a JSON message. All done in the background request. So even though this JSON can be a little hard to understand, we're going to approach it the exact same way. In fact, we're pretty much always going to approach all of these injections the exact same way, because the methodology works, and it's important that we have a repeatable process. Web apps, by their nature, are custom. Every single app that you run into as a tester is likely to be different than the last one in some way, so we need a repeatable process that we can apply. Otherwise, it's going to take too long to get the job done. So let's go ahead and set up burp, and we'll capture the request, and we'll hit lookup tool. Even though it's an AJAX request, it's still a request, and we can see that the variable sent, parameters sent, excuse me, are the two cookies that we already know about, and then there's this one variable tool ID in the body, and it looks like it's trying to send an integer. We'll replace that with canary, and we'll send it on down the line. Now, so far, nothing's different. Actually, let's just look at a regular request for tool ID number 4. It's not even go to the canary yet. So the JSON comes back, and it is the information that is going to be used to populate this table down here. So you can kind of see here's comments, scanner, discovery, W3AF, and tool ID number 4. So here you go. Tool ID is 4, tool name is W3AF, phase to use is discovery, tool type is scanner, comment is basically this whole entire thing. The rest of it is the comment. Now, where are we going to land? That's the question. Where is our injection going to land in this mess? Because that's going to help us move on to the next step, which is determining the prefix and the suffix that we need. So let's go ahead and forward this back to the browser so the browser can render the page. Make a new request. Let's not do show all, that'd be too messy. Intercept is on. Tool ID number 14. And I'm going to add a canary. Good timing.
I'll turn my phone down a little.
Okay, so here's tool ID number 14, but that isn't where we did the injection. You can see the injection is in the tool ID requested field that's returned back. So this is a reflected cross-site scripting opportunity, right? Because we sent something in and it reflected it back to us. It's probably not storing it in the database because it seems to be coming back instantaneously in the same request response cycle. But the second 14 it's not our value being reflected back, because notice it's not 14 canary, it's just 14. The tool ID, that is. So apparently that 14 is being selected out of a database field. Does that make sense? We know where our injection is going to land, and it's going to land right here. So again, we'll copy this out. There are better things to use than Notepad, but it works pretty well on Windows, so I'm just going to go with that for today. Okay, so let's break this on. This is what we control right here. That's our piece of real estate. The rest of it doesn't belong to us. So let's break this JSON down in half right on the injection point. All right, so we can do this. So if we want to break out of the JSON context and actually do a cross-site script, then we need to close off the JSON that's already there. We need to get rid of the JSON that's left over, and we need to have a payload between the two. Same thing we've been doing pretty much all day long, although the context is different. So when you're doing your prefix, you're working backwards towards the front. When you're doing the suffix, you're working forwards towards the end. So let's do the prefix first. What's the first character that we need to close out the context? Quote. And then what? Yep, keep working backwards. This double quote here matches this one, so they're already paired. But this bracket doesn't have a pair, right? So let's keep working backwards. Then we run into a colon, which is just, colon is just eliminating the query from everything else. And we have this double quote, but it's already paired up with that double quote, so that cancels off. And then you've got this bracket who needs needs a friend. Okay, and then let's look at the end to get a clue as to what the end should look like. And sure enough, you see there's a double bracket there, so it gives us a little confidence that we're probably correct. Okay, now if we're just going to execute a plain cross-site script, do we really need the rest of this stuff? Probably not, right? We can probably just comment it out with the JavaScript comment. Now, I'm not using an SQL comment here. It's not an SQL injection. The context is JavaScript, and a JavaScript comment is a double slash. It's not a dash dash. And we don't need the space. So all this space in the middle belongs to us, right? So let's end, just to try to be safe, let's end this JSON with a semicolon. And then let's just put a little test value there just to see if we can even get this to work at all. And then pull everything back together. So our injection is this little piece of real estate here, right? Matter of fact, let me put a little space there just so it's clear what our construction is. Okay, so we have tool ID requested is here. This is the response. Let's go ahead and forward it back. Make a new request. Look up hailstorm. Okay, there's the number 8, tool ID requested. We're going to close out the 8. Close out the JSON. Put our payload, and then try to comment out the remainder. Now to get this to work right, without affecting the web server, let's go over to the decoder, paste it in, grab the URL encoded version, and just try to be safe. And let's just see if this works. Okay, so we have query, the tool ID requested is 8, and then here our injection starts, and there the JSON ends. Then here's our payload, and then here's the comment and everything else. Send it back to the browser, and oh, it didn't work. Okay. So, good try. So now what we need to do is we need to check the syntax of everything and see if we can figure out what happened. Okay, we can try it without the semicolon we added onto the end and see if we can get that to work. Actually, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. I'm wondering if it's because this response here wasn't included in it, and it expected that, it needed that to run right. All right, let's try another trick. See if we can get it to work this way. Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to let a legitimate request go through, and I'm going to use it to know what the injection should look like, if that makes sense. So I'm going to copy this one down here. Okay, tool ID is 15. Our injection point is right here on the number, the tool ID requested the number 15. So we know that after the 15 If it looked like that, it would work. That's valid. Maybe we can just steal the site's own response and then reflect its own response into itself so that it gets back the response it wanted in the first place. So maybe if we put like the comment here to comment out, because it's going to have its own correct response, right? Maybe we can send into it the correct response and then a comment to comment out its correct response, and it'll think that our correct response is its correct response. So we'll comment out, this comment character at the end will comment out whatever comes after this. So we'll just keep trying until we can get it to work. It's kind of complicated, but it's kind of fun too. Okay, so this is where our payload is going to land. So we're going to include the 15, and we're going to inject all of this stuff. Okay, let's see if it works. Including the 15, let's inject all this stuff and see if we can get our response to take the place of the correct response. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's encode that. That looks pretty complicated. We'll get the first one to work too here in a second, but let's try this. Okay, this gets confusing, but we injected this here, and we injected it all the way up to this exact point, and then we added a comment, which hopefully is commenting out the real response that came back. And let's just see if it works. We don't have a payload, we're just trying to figure out if our syntax is correct. Whoops, I have to go back to the browser. And not having much luck today.
I guess the reason why is you're thinking that it's more complicated just because JavaScript's a little clunkier to deal with than
yeah,
HTML.
it's hard to get right. It's hard to get this
Syntax
exactly
all
perfect.
correct.
And I'm kind of thinking it has something to do with maybe the comment. Let me do this. Let's do toggle hints.
Is the comment thinking that it is commenting out itself?
Possibly. I think I wrote down the answer in here at one point. Oh, oops, sorry. Okay, I think it just dawned on me what the problem is. I think I led you off track. Let's see. So the JSON comes back, right? And then it gets incorporated into the document object model, and then it gets parsed. It's getting parsed literally in the browser itself, in the source code that's running in your browser, in the view source, for example. So let's look at it that way, and I think it'll make more sense. And I already realized what I did wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to send this off. Tool ID is 12, and here comes the response, and that's going to get incorporated into the page. It's literally going to be incorporated into the source code of the page itself, which bodes well for us. But I can't look at it in burp. I think that's the problem. I need to look at the variable that was created on this page, the actual JavaScript. Let's see if we can find that variable. I'm sure it's going to be a bear. Okay, I think the caching is preventing that from working, so let's just fire up Firebug. Some JavaScript. Okay. a lot of JavaScript. Okay. I'll definitely magnify this. Okay, you see where it says JSON.parse the response? So we did see the response. It was that JSON. And it came back over into this PenTest tools JSON variable. See that variable there? And that variable is getting populated by the JSON.parse method. And then that's being passed into the display PenTest tools function. So we need to take into account that there's an extra bracket in that variable. And I think this will be easier to see on the post version of the page, so I'm going to switch over to that because we can capture it in burp and it's easier to craft the request where we can see it, especially since we're running out of time. Okay, so there's the request, forward. Okay, let's go find the response, starting at the bottom and working our way backwards. There's the JavaScript that does all the heavy lifting. Okay, here's the variable. Whoops. Kind of highlighted that whole area. Here's the variable, and then here's the injection point right here. You see that number 13. So I think what we're missing out of our earlier attempts is that parenthesis. When the response comes back, it's landing here inside of the JavaScript, and I think that parenthesis is not getting closed out is the problem. So we needed to have a closing parenthesis after the two brackets and the one double quote right here. Okay, so let's forward that and try again. All right, let's copy all of this. But we would need a parenthesis right there to close off that opening parenthesis, the very first parenthesis. So we need to make it the last character. All right, let's try again. Okay, the tool ID is 10, and if we add on the brackets and then comment out the rest, let's see if this works. So go down here to the bottom and look up that that JavaScript and see how it looks. So we have the open paren, open bracket, query, another open bracket. There's the 10. Close off the quote, close off the inner bracket, close off the outer bracket, close off the outer paren, end the statement with a semicolon, put in the payload, and then try to comment out the rest. Holy smokes, it worked. All right. JSON injection.
Different kind of bracket.
Okay, good night now. Let's see. Let me see if I can get this to do something useful besides pop up an alert box. Okay, so I'm definitely going to just grab the hints because we're running so short on time. Okay, so down here, there's really not a whole lot more that's different, but what we did is we have the double quote to close off where the number lands, but what we do is we copy a legitimate response, okay, and fold that into, oh yeah, and there's that little closing paren that I forgot. And we fold that into our injection so that a legitimate response will actually come back. Then we have our payload here, which is the same Ajax, we've been using all day long to send people off to the capture data page silently in the background. We already looked at that earlier. And then we have the comment, JavaScript comment, to comment out the real legitimate response, which is going to look exactly like that, because we're copying one of the earlier previous responses and we're going to mimic that. So let's see if we can get that to work. And in this hint, it's already encoded for you down here, but we can take it over and put it in the decoder. This would be one heck of a URL to send somebody, but of course, you would use the anchor tag to make it look like a real short little URL, and then underneath it would be the full-blown thing. Okay, let's forward that on, and then go back down to the bottom of the page, find the JavaScript. Oops, that's not us. There it is. Okay, so we injected right here on the number 16, and then we injected a legitimate response. And then we have our payload starts next and goes all the way down to here. And then we have the comment to comment out the actual response, the real response. Well, that's weird. Did I actually pick the tool 16 and we emulated the tool 16? That's too much coincidence. But, all right. So let's let this go on back to the browser. Okay. And the page works. See, the page looks perfectly normal. Looks fine. No problems. View the captured data. Looks like I got a notification to clean up on that page. And boo, it didn't send off the request. But it didn't. It was in fact valid JSON, so let's see if we can figure out what happened. Okay, here's tool number 10.
Well, last time you left a tool number in there, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
You can delete it whenever you insert it.
Yep. I think we would have to go back and try to figure out like what is wrong with the I guess it's the Ajax that must be messed up in this particular case, so I'll have to take a closer look at that. But we can try something maybe a little bit simpler. Let's see. So here's the payload. We may have to end up using an alert box after all, just as a demo. At least we can figure out if we can get this to work with the legitimate JSON interjected in there so that the page looks right to the user. Okay, so it is the Ajax that's messed up because the alert box is firing off, and there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with the formatting of the table. It doesn't cut off in the middle of a comment or anything goofy like that. It looks good. So I think we'll have to leave it here, and then I'll have to just go fix the Ajax. But certainly get the idea of JSON injection is it's really just like any other injection, and really Ajax requests are no different than any other request. In fact, if you look at two requests, one generated by Ajax and one generated by a user visiting a page the traditional way, it'd be hard pressed to actually tell the difference between the two. If they're going to the same server and the same path with the same variables, every once in a while you will see a request header that'll kind of give away that it was an Ajax. It might have some request header that's specific to that particular version of Ajax, like a jQuery sometimes puts an extra header in there and it'll give it away. But usually, unless it's generated by a library like that, you're not going to notice any differences at all. So we just apply the same techniques. So All right, everybody. Well, thanks very much for coming today. Appreciate it. And on our way out, we need to take apart all the cabling and stuff, and that goes back to Carl, back in the bucket back there, Carl. Actually, it's a black square plastic thing. And appreciate Adrian filming all day long and doing a module, and thanks to Conrad for doing 2 long modules. Appreciate the break.
Thanks, Jeremy.